panning the mix. So now that we understand what panning is, we're going to go ahead and begin panning elements of our mix. So we're going to start with the drums. Like usual, I always like to start with the drums. And really our drums are pretty straightforward in this session because we have our overheads, which are just panned hard left and hard right. And then we have a couple of usual kind of regular guidelines to follow with drums. So the most common thing to do with drums is to always leave the kick drum right down the middle, and usually the snare top and bottom down the middle as well. And that's partly because these are major elements of our mix and we want them to be front and center and really prominent. The hi-hat is going to be the one that we're going to do some panning with. And the key thing here is what orientation our drum overheads have been recorded in. So if we listen to the drum overheads, we need to decide, has this been recorded as audience view or drummer view? Okay, so if the drummer is left-handed, or it's going to be different, but if it's a right-handed drummer, which is the common case, just like everything, there's more people that are right-handed, your drummer is going to be, from their perspective, the hi-hat is going to be on the left, and the other cymbals are going to be on the right, and the toms are going to go from left to right, high to low. And if we listen to this, we'll notice that it's not that direction, it's the other direction. So this has been recorded as audience perspective. So it's as if we're looking at the drummer, and his left is our right, sort of thing. And so you'll notice that the hi-hat, especially if we take the hi-hat out here, the hi-hat is over to the left. So what we want to do is we want our hi-hat track we want to support that with our hi-hat track. So we want to kind of be consistent with that. And the other thing that happens, and this is a big debate among a lot of engineers and such, is that the snare drum is not actually in the middle. The kick drum, yes, that's in the middle of the kit. But the snare drum's actually off to one side. It's off to the side of where the hi-hat is. So a lot of people will actually take and slightly pan their snare drum off to the right or left side, depending on if they're audience perspective or drummer perspective. So in this circumstance, since we're audience perspective, since our hi-hat is off to the right, our snare drum would be off to the right a little bit too. So now you can hear that the snare drum, everything kind of fits better with what's happening in the overheads. So we take the overheads out, we have sort of the same image happening with the hi-hat off to the right a little ways, and the snare drum a little bit off to the right, and the kick straight up and down the middle. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually return back to the beginning so we can not have everything all in there and all crazy at the beginning. So you notice our piano is stereo and it's just panned hard left and hard right, and that's a big decision where we can decide we can keep it this way, just like the drums. We can keep it where it was recorded with that one mic being closer to probably the low end strings and one mic being to the high end strings, and we could listen to it and try to figure out where the panning was, and it appears that the left side is more of the low frequencies and the right is more of the high frequencies. So we can keep it completely panned hard left and hard right, but you notice that we do have panners here. We have the opportunity to adjust the position of our piano. It doesn't have to be spread across our whole mix. We can kind of put it off to one side or the other. And that's one thing about panning is the general rule for panning, there's a couple different rules, but the main thing is the guidelines are that you're trying to recreate a performance. So you're trying to recreate a stage of people. So your piano is not going to be spread across the whole stage. And so your piano is going to be off to one side or the other, or maybe it is right in the middle. But we can actually take and put our piano off to one side. So you don't have to keep these hard left and hard right. We could actually move them close to each other. You know, if we wanted to, we could make the organ a little bit more prominent and kind of move the organ over to the other side and have organ to the left and piano to the right. Okay, and you notice that I did cross over the bass, which really follows the same rules as the kick drum and basically always stays in the middle. There are some times where you can put it off to one side or the other, but you should try it, especially when you listen with headphones. Putting the bass off to one side can actually kind of wig out your ears with the headphones, because those lower frequencies really work better if they're coming equally through both speakers and kind of centralized and kind of cemented down in the middle. But we're going to pause for a second and we're going to continue working on the panning in the next video, so we'll see you in just a second.